Greetings, everyone. Happy October officially, our first board meeting of the month. I'm going to call this meeting to order. Let's establish that we have a quorum, please, by beginning with a roll call vote. Joe?
Here.
Corby?
Here.
John?
Here.
Meredith? Here. Christopher?
Here.
Juan Carlos?
Here.
I am here as well. We do have a quorum. Corby, has this meeting been properly noticed?
It has.
Thank you. To help ensure that we're centering our board work around our shared values and serving our students, we begin each of our board meetings by reading our district's equity framework and the Ho-Chunk land acknowledgement, which can be found at the top of the agenda. Corby, would you please be willing to read those for us tonight?
Absolutely. In the Verona Area School District, our mission is that each student will acquire the knowledge and skills necessary to achieve their personal goals, thrive in a diverse global society, and lead a healthy, self-fulfilling life. To meet this mission, the Verona Area School District will ensure that every individual has access to the educational, social, and emotional support they need to feel valued and affirmed in their unique identities and experiences. We acknowledge that inequities and power dynamics exist in our system, such that some individuals, on the basis of their identities, face barriers to accessing the opportunities they need to experience success. In acknowledgement of such, the Verona Area School District is committed to disrupting these systems of inequity. And the land acknowledgement reads, there are currently 12 tribal nations who call Wisconsin home, with the Ho-Chunk Nation being the primary group living around Madison. No matter where you are in the state, you are on the ancestral land of a tribal nation. As we begin our meeting, we honor the land upon which we stand.
Thanks, Corby. Board members, drawing your attention to the remainder of tonight's agenda. Any suggestions, amendments? Otherwise, I would accept a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Motion to approve agenda as presented.
Thank you, Christopher. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Juan Carlos. All those in favor of approving tonight's agenda signify with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The agenda is approved. Moving on to board recognition. I think I'll maybe let Dr. Clarity speak first, because this is always an awkward one when it's school board recognition time of year. So Superintendent Dr. Clarity, would you like to start?
Absolutely. It really is our honor. And there are two distinct recognition times of the year for the work of Board of Education, both across the state and then across our nation. But today we're specifically thinking about the Wisconsin recognition. And so as we think about this week, the Wisconsin Associated School Boards designate this special week as a Wisconsin School Board Week. It's time for building awareness and understanding the vital function an elected Board of Education plays in our community. Verona School District joins public school districts across the state to celebrate Wisconsin Board Week and honor VSD's Board of Education for their commitment to our community and students. And so truly, on behalf of the entire staff and the community of the Verona School District, we really thank you all for your service and what that means for continuing the greatness of public education across our community. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I know we all, that's happening.
Yes,
okay.
Yes.
I hope it's fair to say, speaking a bit on behalf of the group that I get the privilege of serving with, that none of us sit at this table because of the recognitions and accolades. And I appreciate being a part of this group of 7 that head down, do the work, and do our best to serve the community. I'd like to just elevate, for the sake of the community, that WASB, the Wisconsin Association of School Boards. This group has great participation within our state organization. We attend the state conference. Many of us have helped facilitate at the conference. We attend regional meetings. We're all very actively involved. And I would even say actively involved to the sense of trying to continue to elevate values that we carry here to the state level. It can be really challenging to support the state of Wisconsin school boards collectively when there's so many facets of what districts look like And I'm very proud of this group for taking the energy to try to propel forward things that we believe are true and benefit all kids throughout the state of Wisconsin. So thanks to all of you for your time and commitment to WASB, and appreciate the share from WASB to us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. In honor of this day, we have recognition from Governor Tony Evers. I was asked all of us to read a proclamation on his behalf. So whereas school boards are locally elected bodies that serve over 400 public school districts and communities across the state with the mission of preparing students for success in higher education, future jobs and careers, and productive engagement in their communities. And whereas school board members are elected to serve students, district employees, and a larger community, working closely with parents, taxpayers, educational professionals, and other community members to do what's best for kids and adapt to the evolving needs of their districts. And whereas school boards are empowered and charged with overseeing the education of students enrolled in their district, as well as the district's employees, finances, operations, and facilities. And whereas school board service is an honor that carries a significant responsibility, and in moments of need, school board members often go beyond the call of duty. And whereas this week, the state of Wisconsin commends school boards across the state for the important role they play as advocates for public education and as essential partners in the state's efforts to ensure that every kid in Wisconsin has access to high quality public education. Now, I therefore, speaking on behalf of Governor Tony Evers, hereby recognize School Board Week in the Verona Area School District. So again, thank you so much for your service.
Thank you. Moving on to community recognition. So speaking of WASB, the Wisconsin Association of School Boards, we got an opportunity to honor some community partners in the area. Again, Dr. Cleary, if you want to speak first, this was a partnership on attempting to recognize the multiple partners that we have in terms of local organizations, businesses that support our school district. So if you want to start, I'll add a few pieces after you.
Absolutely. As we, in conjunction with the Wisconsin Association of School Boards, we were given an opportunity to nominate businesses around our area that really go above and beyond in their partnership and servicing and prioritizing public education, specifically the Verona Area School District. And of our nominees, we were excited to receive notice of 5 that would receive the honor of the 2025 Business Honor Roll. And so with that, I'll turn those 5 over to you for recognition of our 5 winners.
Yeah, thank you. I think for each of these, there'd be a multitude of things that we could elevate for examples, but I'll just offer a few. Epic, a big gratitude is for being able to share spaces, particularly for our graduation. It is such a luxury to have such a nearby space that allows for such a capacity for folks to come and celebrate our scholars. That's one of many things that Epic does to support our schools. Miller's, job opportunities, how many brat sales could we not even count in ways of supporting financially to student organizations, athletics, and so on, and supporting students with special needs that are looking for careers as well. The Fitchburg Chamber and the Verona Area Chamber as network partners for our, I'm losing my words here for a second. Just business connections for our students with Jenny Johnston, the support that she provides our scholars here. And then the Verona Press, of course, and just being an avenue for sharing and celebrating successes in our district and being a partner to help us share and keep our community informed. So we're super grateful for these 5 that are being recognized this year. And thank you for the partnership and time and being able to submit these nominees.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And congratulations to these dynamic businesses and true appreciation for your partnership and what it means to the continuing education of our students. So this next part of the superintendent's report is I really wanted to pause. We had a monumental moment in the Verona Area School District last Friday. We'd like to thank our Board of Education members that were there present and those that were there in spirit. And thank you for your confidence and vote and responsible fiscal management and prioritizing staff wellness as we open up the employee health clinic with a ceremonial ribbon cutting on last Friday. I've been a part of those, but I never realized how sharp those scissors were. And don't stick your hand in there. I might have been the first patient in the clinic, but they are. It was a great, really a great ceremony. I was very proud to be a part of it with speeches from our board president, Jen Murphy, and also representation from our businesses that supported the opening. Very honored to have the executive team of BAEA and the executive team of VESPA present and in attendance to be a part of that, knowing that their advocacy and their partnership has meant the world to bring this to life. And just anecdotal data, the clinic is already booked 2 weeks or more out. It's filled up fast already, and today was the first day of service, and it's off to a great start. So thank you, everyone.
Yeah, so exciting. Thank you, admin team, all the leadership and work that went behind getting this done so expeditedly as well. So excited to get the data to see the impact to our staff.
All right, next, as part of the superintendent's report, I'd like to invite Deputy Superintendent Chad Weezy and our distinguished guests, Representative Verona Police Department, including our own newest SRO, Officer Stoll, to give the safety and security update.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you.
Hello. Good evening, board. It's good to see everybody tonight and double down on Dr. C's kind words regarding recognition for your service. I bring with me 3 other public servants who are integral in making sure that our schools and community are safe on a daily basis. We are excited to really give the board an update on this important work. At the end of the day, we're going to dive into Act 95 later, which is super exciting and tied to all kinds of academic achievement. At the end of the day, if our schools aren't safe and welcoming, the conversation you're having after we're done tonight is quite honestly mute. We have to make sure our kids are safe and they come to a welcoming school on a daily basis. That work is, in my opinion, next to impossible if our community is not safe. And it's important that we build bridges and make sure we have a partnership with the folks to my left tonight. So it's super excited to have them with me. Quickly, what we're going to try to accomplish in our short presentation, we're going to reaffirm our commitment to make sure our schools are safe. We're going to share updates on the work we've been doing to make sure our school year was off to a safe start. And we've got systems in place to ensure that that safety can be replicated and looks the same in all of our schools. We're going to highlight some of the same things we've been working on. We're going to demonstrate accountability to all of you and to our community, and again, continue to strengthen trust. This is not a relationship that happens overnight, and it does not exist in every single community where you can end up in a place that the police department and the school system butt heads and do whatever they can to keep each other out of their spaces. In my opinion, that doesn't work. During times where you need each other the most, if you haven't fostered those relationships and built communication channels, things fall apart in a hurry. So it's great to have these 3 folks with me tonight. You can see really this whole crew built these slides tonight. I said to Marcy that school board slide makes all of the rest of my slides with clip art not quite look. We had you guys in 3D to start the meeting, and we got a little clip art, and we did our best to follow suit with all of you. I'm going to have the Verona Police Department introduce themselves. Why don't we go in reverse order just so we can go in order of the slides. Chief, why don't we start with you?
Hello again. I met all of you, I don't know, probably 6 months ago. So I'm excited to be invited here again, and this time with a school resource officer, Officer Brad Stoll. Just a recap of who I am. Maybe you might remember, but I'm what I refer to as a hometown boy, born and raised in the city of Verona. Started with the Verona Police Department full-time, 2001. I was a sergeant, then a lieutenant in 2008, and then chief for the last 3 years. Being born and raised in this community, I have a passion for it, as well as this school. Graduating here in 1988, and my 2 young adult children also graduated from Verona High School. One was a COVID graduate, so I did not get to walk the stage. And so I'm very interested in the safety of our community and the school district. So thank you again for the invite. I just want to stress how positive our relationship is with the school district. Dr. Clarity, Mr. Weezy, Mr. Cox, and others. We have a great relationship, and none of them are allowed to leave. I think I can tell
We
the school
concur.
board that. Yeah, the recommendation. So that's my introduction. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Jeremy Hatfield, and I started my law enforcement career back in 2003. During that time, I was able to spend a couple of years as a school resource officer, which was very eye-opening and entertaining, very rewarding as well. I currently serve as a lieutenant with the Verona Police Department, and my responsibilities are primarily investigations and emergency preparedness for the city as a whole, and then supervise the SRO program as well.
Hi, I am Brad Stoll. I am your new SRO for about a month now. So I've been with the Verona Police Department for 7 years. I started my career here, so this is pretty much all I know is this city in terms of working as a police officer. So I'm excited to be here. My wife is a high school counselor in a different district, so I'm not a stranger to education or anything like that. So I've kind of come into this role having a background in how the systems in a school kind of work, but obviously experiencing it in a different way than I ever experienced before. So it's been a lot of learning, a lot of names, and I'm not good with names, and so I'm working on it, but I just can't say like enough about how great Chad has been, just responsive to everything. If I have a question that comes up, I send Chad a text message. He's like, I don't know the answer, but I'll get it to you in the next 5 minutes. And sure enough, within 5 minutes, I'm getting a message back with everything I need. And so that's been really great to make sure that we're starting this new journey off on the right foot and kind of getting just everything I need to get going with it.
And now I feel left out because I've had a great experience with Chad as well.
Thanks for that.
Chad Weezy recognition.
That's
Yeah.
certainly not the intent. We could not really kick off an update on safety and security without recognizing the 5 security assistants that make up the team. There will rarely be a time that you now come to the high school that Officer Stoll isn't checking in with at least one of them. What's the word on the street for the day? And they're eyes and ears and building relationships with all of our students. And I think are an incredibly important component to really at the end of the day, making sure when Brad's here at high school, that Principal Cox has a team that's taking care of making sure that the place is safe. You'll hear a little bit more about some of the work Officer Stoll is doing at all of our schools. He's continued to make sure that he's not only just stationed at the high school, but has been a presence at all of our schools and continues to be a resource for all of the schools that are in Verona. But again, can't say enough about this group of people. They are amazing, dedicated folks and an outstanding team, and we're in a really good spot with the 5 people that we've got. I was going to kick off just really the first portion of this slide and then turn it back over to Officer Stoll and maybe just kind of expound a little bit on how his first month has gone. And this was a big deal. This transition back in to the school district after a few year hiatus, and making sure we found the right person and making sure that we got off to a smooth start was a big deal. And the 2 of us and frankly the 4 of us knew that it was high stakes to make sure Officer Stoll got off on the right foot and built relationships with our students, and he has done that. Officer Stoll's been an integral part, and he can tell you a little bit more about some of the safety drills. We've ended up in a place that we were committed to the school board when we signed this contract that we were going to openly share data with all of you and our community in terms of what's happened. Officer Stoll wrote his first newsletter, and I think we'll detail some of that when you hear from him in a little bit here in terms of how that first month went. We did end up having 2 arrests in the month of September. We had one where we had a decent fight inside a dean's office where a student received a concussion, and we ended up working with the Verona Police Department. They made the determination after consultation with us. And it's not always going to be like that. There's going to be times that laws are broken. We're running a city of 2,000 adolescents here. There's going to be times that laws are broken and the Verona Police Department steps in and says, a law was broken and there's going to be a consequence for actions. Wasn't the case this time. Jeremy came over when we had a decent little fight and said, here's where we're leaning. Are you comfortable with it? I said, by all means. If I would have said no, they still could have recommended a citation and said, Chad, too bad, pound sand, this was too bad, they broke a law, and that wasn't the case. And then the other one I wanted to give a little bit more detail on, and the possession of a dangerous weapon on school property, quite frankly, was a result of the school district, Fitchburg Police Department and the Verona Police Department having a working relationship enough that we had a community-based issue that kind of spilled into Fitchburg off of a bus. Ended up having Lieutenant Hatfield and a captain from the Fitchburg Police Department, Brian, myself on a conference call on a Sunday afternoon to make sure that our schools were safe on a Monday morning. And without the communication that took place there, there's a chance we would have kind of been opening up school Monday morning completely blind, and that wasn't the case. We had a few students who made bad decisions on a Friday afternoon and over the weekend, and Brian was able to identify those students, hold, I think, 3 or 4 parent meetings to start the school day, and after multiple interviews across our school, Fitchburg and the Verona Police Department, a student admitted that they had a pocket knife, a closed blade knife, that he carried around in a backpack for the day. If you guys have questions around the referral for a dangerous weapon on school property, they're here to answer questions, but made the decision that you're kind of crossing a no-go line in our school district if you bring a weapon, even if it's never seen, which it wasn't, onto school property, and made the decision to refer a case to Dane County for don't bring a knife to school, and there's consequences. There are consequences here with our restorative, our student discipline plan, but also consequences that resulted with police involvement. Officer Stoll, certainly I want to turn this over to you. Interested in highlights from your newsletter, other things you've got going on in school. Certainly I'd like to hear from you regarding us kicking off youth court or anything else.
I guess I'll just jump to the second bullet point because that's kind of what we've been talking about. So one arrest and one criminal referral. So I just want to differentiate that a referral is a little bit different, and that's where an individual is just given a court date or a notice that there will be a court date coming in the future, and that's not an actual physical arrest. So there was one single physical arrest, and that was for that fight in the Dean of Students office. That resulted in some pretty substantial injuries, and that kind of forced our hand in having to make that decision. The referral was made after it was determined that the student involved knew that there was going to be an issue in the community after they got off the bus, and they chose to still bring that knife to school in preparation for a fight that was going to occur. And they didn't disclose that to anyone during that entire process. And that's kind of what forced our hand in having to go the criminal referral route with that, just because there was a point in time all day long where that student could have made a different choice and they just didn't. And they brought that knife with the intention of using it in that fight. And when that kind of comes out, that kind of forces our hand with that. Otherwise, I have not issued any citations to any other students. Certainly made contact with a variety of different incidents that have occurred, issued some warnings. Otherwise, been mainly allowing Principal Cox and the rest of the admin team to kind of deal with it following a progressive discipline model. And a lot of just kind of figuring out where I fit in that model, establishing what rises to the level of needing my involvement, maybe just giving me a quick rundown and saying, yes or no, is this something that sounds like it could need police involvement, or no, this really sounds like a school-only issue, let's move forward with that. And so there have been some instances where, I've been consulted, this sounds like a school issue. Like, unless you learn something crazy, I think the school should just be the one running with this. And so just figuring out those lines of communication have kind of been what we've been up to in terms of that. For the standard response protocol, we've been using Navigate 360 as our new app to be able to perform these drills. Pictured at the top is a fire drill. It was at Badger Ridge Middle School. And so I have attended 8 of those drills across the district in our city of Verona schools. So I have been to at least one drill at every school in the city, and made it a point to obviously introduce myself to the principals, and especially the front office staff, who are the ones I'd primarily have the most contact with if I went to those buildings. And just doing little things like making sure keys are working when they're supposed to for our first responders. I discovered at one of the sites that my master key fob didn't work, and we got that rectified very quickly. But just kind of some of those little things that in an emergency we want to make sure that everything is working. And overall, the schools have been doing pretty well in making sure that these drills are running smoothly. I've been really impressed with a lot of that. We've had some other school safety investigations. First or second week of school, we had a student who brought forth a concerning social media post to a trusted adult in the high school. And we were able to conduct some interviews and determine that the weapon seen was fake in the photographs and it belonged to a different subject who didn't even live on the side of the county. But that was something that we were able to screen out quickly just because the student had a trusted relationship with someone at the high school and was willing to bring that information forward. And obviously, kind of going back to the dangerous weapon thing, the other school safety one was that fight that we learned about after the fact that Fitchburg PD investigated, and we had a good line of communication to be able to follow up on that and ensure that some of those problems didn't spill back into the school later that week when we got back from the weekend. Restorative Justice Court, we are in discussion with a couple different trains of thoughts in terms of setting up a restorative justice program if we do get to the point where I have to issue citations to students for whatever it may be. One of the options on the table is reaching out to a local youth organization that already administers a form of a youth justice court in terms of they would offer things like community service, peacemakers who kind of mentor the student in hopes that we're preventing recidivism. And the other option would be us kind of doing that and building that on our own within the school district and the Verona Municipal Court. And so those are some of the things that are kind of ongoing right now that we're still having discussions about in terms of what makes the most sense for us and all of that. And lastly, just building relationships. There's a lot of kids at this high school, and especially now that this position is more district-wide, a lot of different buildings to get to, a lot of different kids to see. And so I'm starting off trying to get to all the different schools for lunch at least once a month, trying to hit up a different grade level. This past week I was at Country View for second grade lunch and handing out stickers, kind of meeting and greeting with the kids a little bit, and trying to weave that into it, seeing like one grade at every school every month, just to kind of get myself out there, because although I do cover all those schools, there's not always a call for service need for me to be at those schools, and to just kind of remind them that I'm there and this is what I do, and kind of meet some kiddos.
I'm going to do a brief pause there. Anybody have questions for Officer Stoll specifically? We've got time for questions at the end as well. You good?
I just want to add a comment, but go ahead, Christopher.
Well, I was just wondering how the community has responded to your presence and the difference that there's between parents, students, and staff.
The response has been overwhelmingly positive. I can't recall instances at all, hearing, I guess, rude remarks in the hallway or anything like that. A lot of the students just come right up to me and talk to me just like I'm a normal staff member. One thing that has been shocking to me at the high school level is I pull out the roll of stickers in the high school cafeteria and the kids just flock. Even the high schoolers. It's phenomenal. And so I tell them the rule to get a sticker is they have to tell me their name, because like I said, terrible with names, trying to remember. Then they have to either tell me a fun fact about themselves, or they have to ask a question they've always wanted to ask a police officer. And
Then there are speeding tickets and radar questions and radio tins.
It generates a lot of discussion, but it's pretty amazing how many questions exist from both students and staff that are questions that they've always wanted to ask, and they've just never had the space or the place to be able to ask those questions. And so it's every day that I'm getting bombarded with all these questions, and I'm like, I know a little bit about a lot of things, so sometimes I might have to get back to you on an answer, but I can, provide you with my best educated guess as to what the answer is. So overwhelmingly positive, for sure.
Okay, thanks.
Just go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, just a quick question, Officer Stowe. Did I hear you correctly that Verona is looking at participating in the Dane County Restorative Justice Program? Is that?
So there's two different programs. One for 12 to 16-year-olds is through Briar Patch.
Okay.
And then for the 17 and 18-year-olds would be through Dane County.
Gotcha.
Those are the two programs that are in existence. And we have some meetings set up this week, I think, to kind of discuss those in greater detail, to see if they'd be good fits for us. Obviously, Briar Patch was a it seems like a good choice being in Fitchburg, kind of local to our area and accessible and all those things. And so those are things we're trying to keep into consideration. And we have those discussions ongoing, and I venture by the end of the semester, we'll probably have a pretty good idea of where we want to go with it. But it's all things that, take some time to set up and get the systems in place and make sure that we're doing everything the way that we want it to be.
The reason I'm a peacemaker for the Dane County program, and whenever we get a kid from Fitchburg or Verona, the question always comes up, why doesn't Verona participate?
The way, Corby, yeah, I'm super passionate about it. When I was a principal at La Folle, we had a very high functioning youth court, and I think it's an amazing opportunity to change lives. So, yeah.
And I can add a little bit on that. Although we don't have a formal agreement in place, and we have it for at least 5 years, we do have a relationship established. And so, Ishmael Zane will call and say, hey, we have this case, can we refer it? And so we'll just seek permission, and every time we've granted permission. So we do have that working relationship. So it's not a hard no.
Excellent, thank you.
I can add a little bit further. I actually was in one of those restorative circles last week for a separate case involving a 16-year-old who made a poor decision when I was back working patrol. So that was my first time ever being in the process, and I thought it went very well. And so kind of being on a different end of it was very interesting. And I had nothing but positive things to say about it afterwards. But those are discussions we're still having to try and figure out what the best fit is. It's only been a month, and trying to learn a lot.
Thank you.
I just want to elevate a piece of gratitude that I was hearing that I know was a big part of the discussion as a board when leaning back into the relationship with an SRO partner of relying on school admin, security team to ensure that we're not jumping to policing where policing isn't necessary for adolescent behaviors that might just be the nature of kind of, Chad, what you said, 2,000 humans interacting together and teenagers are going to maybe make some poor choices. So I appreciate that I heard you elevate that piece of just really ensuring that everyone's role is clearly defined and utilizing the team that we've had and where your presence and involvement makes sense. So I want to share that gratitude because I know that's something that we talked a lot about. And one clarification, and there'll be a question later because I know we're going to talk more broadly about things. So the dangerous weapon at school was intended for use at a fight planned for outside of the school day.
Yes.
Okay. So I know I heard the part of rumbling in the community on the weekend, but that was the intention, at least of the student, was keeping it to use it later.
Correct.
Thank you.
And if I may reiterate the point that you just made, having that combination of police and security is really imperative. So from my perspective as the police chief, I think Officer Stoll and the police department are in a better situation having that relationship with security. And the way it was previously, it was just we call them a PSL back then, police school liaison, and they got involved with everything. And that wasn't advantageous at times. And so having security is key to this relationship working. So I'm very pleased with how it is working.
Thank you.
Chief, you got the floor. I believe this was even going to be your slide.
It is. I took a few notes here. Today we're talking about school safety, and responsible gun ownership enhances school safety. Each year, the city of Verona signs a Wear Orange proclamation to keep the issue of gun violence in the public forum. Be Smart is a non-political organization which encourages responsible gun ownership and keeping our communities safe. If you can see the acronym for SMART is secure your weapons, model behavior, ask questions, and I can't stress that enough. If you're having a sleepover stage and you're sleeping over at somebody else's house, asking questions, do you have firearms in the house? Are they secure? Recognize and tell. I would like to change that to encourage, but then the acronym wouldn't make sense. More like SMARE. We'll keep it with tell. I've been told that the Verona Area School District is also involved with this program to some degree. And so we want to be a partner with that messaging as well. And I've advised Officer Stoll that I would like to get him involved in whatever kind of messaging or education that we can for keeping the guns out of the hands of juveniles. There's a gun culture in the state of Wisconsin. I don't have to tell any of you that. It makes accessibility to guns far too easy. By applying trigger locks and locking guns in safes, we can prevent accidental deaths, suicides, and homicides. I got some stats that I'd like to share with you. That every day, 125 people in the United States are killed by gun violence, with an average of more than 19,000 gun homicides every year. Wisconsin has an average of 741 gun deaths every year, with a rate of 12.5 deaths per 100,000 people. 1/3 of child gun deaths are suicides. More than 700 child gun suicides each year. One study showed that over 80% of children under the age of 18 who died by gun suicide used a gun belonging to a parent or a relative. And that's why this is so important that we encourage gun safety, locking guns. A national survey of high school students found that 22% had seriously considered attempting suicide within the last year. Unfortunately, suicide is very close to me, losing 2 family members and 2 former partners. So this is very real to me, and I know what the pain feels like. So, we are a board. We'd like to promote gun safety, and this is one avenue to do that. There's a couple other slides here. Firearms are the leading cause of death of American children. I did not know that. That was surprising to me. The leading cause. That just, it still shocks me. Just above motor vehicle traffic accidents. And then 3/4 of school shooters acquired their firearm from a home of a parent or a close relative. So again, there's that nexus. So access to guns. The data is staggering. We gladly encourage responsible gun ownership to prevent tragedy from occurring in our community. The Verona Police Department does provide gun locks free of charge to anybody who asks, and maybe we'll have Officer Stoll bring some to the school in case he's asked for some. In summary, in my opinion, the best form of school safety is a balanced approach involving physical security and security-minded staff. And that staff who's willing to challenge visitors if they don't have a visitor tag or if they don't look like they belong. Most importantly, knowing the students, watching for concerning behaviors, addressing bullying and other toxic behavior, have an easy, accessible reporting methods such as apps that you do, and having mental health resources available for those who are struggling. Keeping guns out of the hands of juveniles is a critical component of school and individual safety. So that's just a word on our stance on that, and we would like to partner in the best way we can to keep our children safe. And then at the very bottom of that slide, it seems like it's a transition point, but we also do have a cadet program with the Verona Police Department. Years and years ago, I was part of the Verona Explorer Post. It's pretty much the same thing, but back then it was through the Boy Scouts of America, and it was police, fire, and EMS. Now the cadet program is just police related. So if there are students who are interested in law enforcement, that is a great opportunity for them to learn about the career. However, I will say the majority of the kids that participate in the program do not go into law enforcement. They go into the military, they go into medical careers, they do everything else but law enforcement. It's supposed to be a recruiting tool. Yeah. But it is a really good program, and so we are interested in recruiting and getting more involvement with our cadet program.
Chief, thanks for that.
Yeah.
And some sobering stuff related to gun violence in America. President Murphy and Dr. Clarion have had lots of conversations around the fact that if we had a turnkey solution to make all this go away, we would. And again, it's a comprehensive approach with our adults knowing our kids. Lock your guns up and make sure these guys are on your side and have your back, and do the best you can every single day to kind of bring those worlds together.
It's just a reminder that it's beyond just the schools. I appreciate the elevation of all this so much, because I feel like as school leadership, when tragedy happens, the eyes zone in on schools. What are schools doing to prevent tragedy? it is wider than our buildings. And just the pieces that you shared there about gun safety is so impactful. It is impossible for this weight to be strictly on the shoulders of schools. So thank you for just surfacing those things, those horrible and awful statistics that are a reminder of we have to be collaborative. Our entire community is part of keeping our schools safe. Thank you.
Well,
Can I add as well? I appreciate raising mental health awareness, and I think that's one thing that collectively we need to do more of. I think we're seeing pressures, many pressures, not only from the pandemic, but now immigration issues at the federal level, adding pressure and the need for additional mental health support. So I think the more that we can continue to elevate that and destigmatize the need for mental health, I think that's another piece of the puzzle that I'm glad you brought up.
and society is very challenging these days. And we as adults, are supposed to have the tools to cope with all these moving parts. Our youth, they don't necessarily have those tools. So we do have to watch for the behaviors and then make sure we have resources available. And a lot of times there are signs, they'll flag the behavior. We have to watch for it and teach the community to watch for it.
I have a very brief kind of update in terms of our practices to start the school year. So I'll zip through these, pause if you have any, but I'm going to kind of try to paraphrase to keep us on time tonight. We have been working on emergency preparedness. Officer Stoll did mention that. That includes a lot of training and communicating and training with students and staff and drills and kind of getting reps to make sure we're ready for events in that if they actually did occur, including classic fire drills and tornado drills, but also emergency planning. So this summer we made a slight shift to our standard response protocol. And this is a nationally endorsed program that for the most part, we were exploring previously. I had Lieutenant Hadfield, Lieutenant Dart, and the Fitchburg Police Department hip to hip with our district in implementing this this summer. One of the main reasons we went to a slightly different standard response protocol was that Oregon School District and the Madison School District used the verbiage in these methods. And there's the Fitchburg Police Department supporting 3 individual school districts. And we had our own slightly kind of Verona twist to this protocol. And it didn't make any sense to make Fitchburg kind of learn the Verona way when this is the most common protocol that is research-based, and we implemented it with tabletop drills and partnership from our law enforcement. So standard response protocol is what you do in the event of, you name it, a gas leak, a fire, an outside threat. We had one just this week that Officer Stoll was like, just be aware there's a tricky arrest going on 3 blocks from school that these folks in the past have had a history of potentially running. And it was so great to have him in the building talking with Principal Cox. He had his radio on, and in the event that things 3 blocks away went sideways, we could have made sure we locked all the doors and had no outside presence. That would be an example of standard response protocol that we have the ability to secure from the outside and have the same verbiage. Standard reunification would be there's an event that happens at a school, could be a gas leak, could be a fire, could be a tragedy like we see on the news, that we are not allowed to be in the school anymore, and we have to have a new place to take our school, and then reunify that school with family members. And that's the standard reunification method, and we've been working on that at length to make sure we're ready in the event that that would occur. I wanted to give a quick reminder, more of the community, the board's aware of many of these things in terms of us having recently upgraded secure entry sequences at all of our schools. We made $1 million investment in Fitchburg just a year and a half ago to make sure that those spaces were ready to go, and all the other things that all of you are familiar with if you come and visit our school. We've got essentially a sex offender database that all guests run through security camera, shatterproof glass. ID badges are required when you come to visit our schools. We've got welcome centers district-wide, and we teach with locked doors. I remind myself that that was even a big thing 2 years ago, making sure that everybody in the school had their door shut when class was going on. And we were questioning whether or not that would be a change that would be hard, and it hasn't been. Our schools, during the school day, teachers shut their door. And it's just our way of working. We've got cameras district-wide that are valuable tools for us. A lot of times can be just a preventative tool that students and staff members know that we do have the watchful eye of surveillance cameras district-wide. One small thing that we've implemented this year is patrol points. Our security team, we've got them, we have checkpoints around the high school that our security team check in on a regular basis. Many of them are checkpoints on exterior doors. So they essentially have an app on their phone. They hit a toggle that's mounted to a wall around the high school, and they can monitor the fact that they're checking essentially a patrol to make sure our doors are shut and bathrooms are checked. And that's new this year. Officer Stoll did mention we've implemented a little bit of new technology. So we've got a new app and software package called Navigate 360. I took a screenshot for the board on the next page, but this is our ability on my phone. And for that matter, actually, I know for sure Jeremy and Brad's phone, you have school safety plans, maps, and the ability to do a mass notification to every single staff member at a site in an instant. We've had a few funny, on occasion, growing pains with this. So this app has the ability to take your phone over and a siren goes off. So at some of our schools, it's gone great. Tight little elementary schools, a little bit of peer pressure. They test it. It all goes off in a staff meeting. People ask questions and they've got it down. Glacier and Country View and Sugar Creek, all our elementary schools have done great. Our middle schools, slightly bigger staff, potentially slightly more free agent staff members as you're working their way up the continuum of academia. They've had a couple of hiccups. The high school, Brian can admit, you get 200 high school staff members in there, some of which might be multitasking during the staff meeting. And we've had some growing pains with setting that alarm off, but much better recently. So, but the entire idea, now that we've kind of been trained on this, is we do have the ability in a moment that if there is a third floor teacher that sees something that we need an instant alert on, they have the ability to lock the building down, and every single staff member like that, the siren goes off and it literally says lockdown. Then while that's going off, they can take roll on their phone, which is amazing. So on the next slide, this is a lockdown drill that Officer Stoll attended just a week and a half, 2 weeks ago at Country View, where 355 of 355 students during a lockdown drill in 6 minutes had perfectly accurate attendance taken. And we can do this for a fire drill. In the event, this is really be a valuable tool in the event that we ever have a day where we have to reunify a school for any reason. We can take attendance in the school, and then we can actually use this software to reunify families to say, this teacher has accounted for this student. Now we can check a box that this student has been handed off to a responsible adult. And we can do that in our pocket. So I think we kind of cast ourselves forward to 2025 with a few growing pains, but this has been a valuable new tool we've kind of added to the toolbox to make sure we're as safe as possible. I skipped over a little bit. We do have a tip line. I think you heard from the chief that certainly see something, say something. There isn't a day we don't get at least some type of tip. Sometimes it can be something like, I don't like the music during lunch, Principal Stoll, or Principal Cox, or open up the filter on the website. Some of that, but others are super meaningful. We had one last week. I've noticed a kid in my first period class that seems to be getting bullied, and I don't know if the teachers noticed. So stuff like that's awesome. Assign it to an assistant principal, pull the kids, what's going on in first period? Can I help you with it? That we would never get. Officer Stoll mentioned stuff on social media. So the tip line is invaluable and we use it all the time. Kind of moving in terms of where we're at now and moving forward, we've got monthly meetings going on with the Fitchburg Police Department, Verona Police Department, EMS, and Fitchburg Fire Department. Lieutenant Hatfield, I don't know if you even want to mention, I think kind of a fruit that was that came out of these meetings is that you got an upcoming training with a multi-jurisdictional training that's been happening at the high school here.
Yeah, so to talk to that a little bit, part of, like I mentioned before, my responsibilities are emergency preparedness for the city. So I work closely with the county emergency management. They reached out and said that they received a grant that they're able to do a large-scale active threat training, and asked if the Verona School District would be interested in hosting that. I reached out to Chad right away, and we talked about how this could be so beneficial for the school district itself by bringing in our law enforcement partners from other jurisdictions and having them train in our building. Heaven forbid, they are called here to assist us. They have already been here. They see the layout. They've participated in these exercises already. So the first time they do something is not the first time they do something. So we're fortunate to have that. We just recently had a meeting. I worked on some of the details on that, but we're very grateful that the school district's allowing us to train here.
So it's on October 23rd, school's closed, but what did you guys call it today? What do you call it if you bring the fire truck? What do they call it?
Apparatus?
An apparatus, yes. Are you bringing an apparatus? So there's a chance there's a bunch of apparatus parked out back on October 23rd.
Right, yeah.
Right? Like a nuclei. All right.
And that will be shared more broadly, right? I mean, I know there's no school, but I can only imagine a community member who lives a few blocks away seeing
Right. In particular,
many
not the graphic,
apparatuses.
Right,
Okay.
this is gonna be all back. So Marcy's working on the communication.
Okay,
logo,
great.
Probably in the high school newsletter and then our district-wide newsletter. So,
Okay.
yep.
That is great.
On the website as well.
Okay.
And leading up to, so anyone who goes on our website for any reason. can see that.
See the pop-up, okay.
And a lot of that training kind of sitting in this is actually, the tragedy that happened in Mount Horeb. A few of these guys responded, and one of the biggest the event was over in 30 seconds. Then it is all the communication that has to happen between media, the school district, and 15 different agencies that are coming to try to figure out how to help the school. So that's a big piece of this training, is figuring out how to do that the most efficiently during a time of chaos. So we're super thankful to have them here and being familiar with our school district. I'll wrap up. I'm not going to read these slides to you. I think the school board is familiar with Act 143. This is simply proving to the state of Wisconsin that the school board knows this is going on, that the schools have safety plans, and that our officers have been through the schools to do a safety assessment. So we will compile a giant document within the next couple of weeks. But we is almost like I have a mouse in my pocket. It's really Nate's in my pocket. Nate will compile with Michael and I helping all the school safety plans. We'll share them with the board, and then we'll ask the board to endorse the fact that this work's going on, and that will come likely within the next month. There will not be another presentation. It will be the board simply signing off on the work happening related to Act 143. It's on a 3-year cycle, and we have to do site assessments. We have to have safety plans, and we have to do drills. And we've talked to you tonight about all that, and you'll just have to sign off on it. Nate, am I missing anything on Act 143?
No, that's pretty much the gist of it.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna close with any final questions that you might all have, or we'll turn it over for Act 95.
So I have a question. I'm trying to think of the right way to ask this. We get reach outs from community members all the time with suggestions about how to implement certain safety protocols that they think will help prevent some of these, high profile school shootings that we all know about. One of the hardest things we have to do as a board, because we operate with limited resources, is try to determine what the most efficient use of our resources would be. And it's difficult when it comes to school safety, because one of the things people advocate sometimes for is like advanced weapons detection systems at every entry point. But like, from my standpoint, if we spend $500,000 on that, that's $500,000 less dollars we don't have to spend on something else, like this really interesting sounding software that we have that helps like secure our buildings. So I kind of the best thing I want to do is ask you all as the professionals, like, what is the most efficient use of our resources in terms of securing our buildings?
And I think I'll start that because I think I already kind of answered that question with my balanced approach.
Absolutely.
And that has to do with, the partnerships on the inside. Starting with the hardening of the building, and you've all done that. You put the layers on the glass, you have camera systems, you have the physical security in place. And then having, the trained personnel from security to school resource officer to all the teachers, just, they're trained in what to look for and how to react and having access to the app. So that balanced approach, because I don't want to come across as negative, but if somebody has an intent to cause harm, they will find a way to cause that harm. And having this additional high-tech security is not going to stop them. There might be some benefits, but at what cost? So, Jeremy, I might defer to you because you're more of our expert on teaching active threat. Is there anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is relationship building. And the fact that you guys have these resources for students to reach out and report something they're seeing. So when we look back at all these tragic incidents that I've heard in the past throughout the nation, we learned that, hey, there was red flags at certain stages along this process. And if somebody would have come forward, then maybe we could have stopped that from happening in the first place. So while putting all this technology, it looks good on paper, is it practical? There are, I think we talked today, there's 80 external doors leading into this building. How do you secure every single one of them? And then if you put equipment there, you have to man that equipment and then potentially take action too. So you have to have someone that is manning that equipment, that is trained in self-defense potentially too, if the person's uncooperative. So for me personally, it's about relationship building and having these resources available to your staff and your students to report something when they see something. Just like Officer Stoll coming up to the school, that 0 citations in the first month to me is a great accomplishment, because I hope that he's out there creating new relationships, that people feel comfortable coming to him and telling them what they're seeing and what's going on, or if someone's having a bad day themselves, they can reach out to him for help. So relationship building for me is the number one thing to keep the school safe.
And one of the best examples that I already heard here tonight from Chad was the use of the app, that a student was being bullied and they wanted to report that. That was huge, because for years that's been ignored, and those students haven't received the help that they've needed, the support that they've needed. And you have a system in place where that student did get help. And the majority of the times it won't rise to a critical incident, but we do know there is a correlation. And so you're already ahead of the curve there.
I think that's,
Hearing all of this so much throughout the presentation, it's been communication, it's been highlighted just by everyone sitting at the table, and I'm just so heartened to hear that. It's, Chief Dresser, I know that's your philosophy in policing, and that's just clearly carried through with the relationships that you've built with the school district. And with the school district, I appreciate all of the outreach that has come from both sides. It's been a beneficial partnership on behalf of our students. One thing with the amount of communication, that we have where students can reach out, I feel like the weak link is the parents. And I'm speaking, for myself, like how do we get parents comfortable with talking, asking a friend about, do you have unsecured guns? There's like maybe a reticence, I think. You don't want to be intrusive, but yeah, there's safety issues, and how do we help, parents navigate some of those conversations in ways that aren't awkward, and maybe help normalize them, like that it should just be a conversation that can be had. But also, and also how do we get input from parents about, maybe parents don't want to get friends and kids in trouble, and they don't want to get their kids in trouble, but if they need help without escalating it to a police issue, is there some ways that we can provide outlets for those type of outreaches similar to the tip line, or even utilizing the tip line? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't have a perfect answer for that. I can tell you that our parents do actively use the tip line.
That is
They, I would say maybe a quarter of our tips are coming from parents. And they could be screenshots from social media. They could be, my daughter came home and told me this today, you should know this. This happened on the bus last night, you should know this. So the tip line is used a lot. Marcy's very good about anytime we have any type of communication related to a safety issue in school. The tip line is kind of the footer on that. reminder, see something, say something, this tip line's monitored essentially 24/7. So I can tell you a quarter of our tips do come from,
I think that's
do come from
fantastic.
parents.
And I think that's actually like a good thing to put out there for parents who are, again, maybe more reticent in communications. This isn't a weird thing to utilize as a parent. It is a fantastic thing to utilize as a parent.
Yep.
And maybe I'm just the one who's reticent, but I am sure there are other parents who are like, oh, what do I, is this something that rises to the level of actually saying something safe? Yeah.
And I think as we move forward with the SMART initiative as well, and we partner with you guys, just the redundancy of us mentioning this and talking about it. And there's probably a lot of parents aren't out there that aren't even aware that maybe they should be asking these questions. Obviously, me being a police officer, when my daughters had friends stay over when they're younger, that was a question we got. The first time I got it, I was like, oh, okay, yes, we do. They are locked away, they're secured, they do not have access to them. I never even thought of asking that question, and here I am, the police officer that carries a firearm on him. So I think just us getting that message out and letting the community know that those are okay questions to ask.
Yeah. Thanks. Thank you. Thank you for all that you're doing. I really appreciate this. I think this is a conversation that, has been through the years, growing, and really just how it has come to pass and how it has come to be in schools is really commendable. I appreciate all the work that has gone into getting to this point. And if, we have
appreciate-
questions, do we get stickers if we ask?
I think I actually did.
Well, we appreciate the trust that you put into us and the partnership that you're willing to have. We're willing to do more, because what's more important than the safety of our community? We're definitely part of that.
So I just want to reiterate the importance of relationships that you pointed out. I know that coming from a larger urban space in Seattle, one of the things that we worried about was getting more police officers on the sidewalk, making sure that they knew different neighborhoods, and rather than policing, and if that's our focus too, that it's relationship, we're really focused on safety for all students, and it's not policing students. I think I did receive comments from concerned families who didn't want to see police officers if it was going to be policing. And so the more that we can reiterate that, I think the more that we'll build trust within some families that might have some reservations. So I just want to reiterate and thank you for that.
Yeah, and I think as part of doing this, I went through certification through NASRO, the National Association of School Resource Officers, and that's kind of one of the big things that they push is the differentiating between like law enforcement policing and school administration enforcement, and how those are two very distinct things. And whenever you're in the school space, you really need to be aware of that distinction between the two, and you need to leave the school-related administrative security team context to those individuals, whereas you're doing the relationship building and the law enforcement type context when you need to. And so one of the things that I have been doing is my office is usually in the atrium. I see Chad there quite frequently, actually. And I just sit in the middle of the atrium and I say hi to kids as they walk by. They stop and ask me questions. I'm not giving them a hard time unless there are some that I've gotten to know now who I know to be skipping class and I encourage them to get going. But I'm not giving them a hard time or like demanding to see a pass to see where they're going. If they want to stop and talk to me, stop and talk to me. I will answer your questions. I'll talk to you. I'll have a conversation with you. And at the end, I'll probably say, you should really get going back to class. Oh, yeah, that's a great idea. I should get going. And then they move on. And so to the extent possible, I really enjoyed having the atrium area of the high school kind of be my office and not actually just tucked away inside the main office. I think that's been really beneficial because I do see the hall walkers tend to be the kids that I'm going to have the most contacts with. And getting to know them and know them on a first name basis has already sort of shown some benefit when those students are elevated and there's in those situations where they may be making a bad decision. They've seen me and they'd be like, I don't want to deal with this. I'm just going to walk away. Love that. Love that for you. Don't just walk away. Don't get in a fight. Don't create a disturbance and just walk away. That's all we can ask for. So.
And when we had this conversation 6 months ago, one of the points I wanted to stress that it was about building relationships and that we felt that there had been a void there for 4 or 5 years. And so I think we have held true to that. Brad has built quite a few relationships, handed out quite a few stickers, and we've issued 0 tickets in the first month. So if we can keep that balance going, I can't promise you we won't write any tickets, because we will. But I think we have a good balance, and we really do want to address students who don't trust the police. We want to build those relationships as well. And Brad is going to get in front of some student groups. He's been invited by a couple of teachers, I believe you shared with me, to get in front of some student groups, and, humanize the badge, as we say, and, answer questions that they have. And so, when they, I hate saying it, the real world, because we're all in the real world, but, when they're independent and on their own, that, they've had a good experience with the police officer, and they kind of know what to expect.
And Chief Dresser, I want to add, you opening your door, or having your doors open for parents to ask questions has also been huge.
Absolutely.
When that SRO issue first came up, parents were very worried, and some of them, how do I find out more information of how this is going to work? So I just want to hats off to you for opening up your door for the community, for parents to actually ask those uncomfortable questions.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And come talk to me, take a tour, we're always happy.
Fill out an application.
If you don't mind, I just want to elevate, so we had the looking ahead slide, and I think for a lot of community members, potentially, I think all the energy we've given to the tip line and the relationships, I think that can feel very invisible. Certain things look visibly safe to community members, and holding those up. And I will sit on this seat and speak for myself that I think the tip line and the relationships and knowing students is number one to safety. Because you said that, right? Any narrative, any story, any tragedy we've heard has a through line that was missed or ignored. And we get questions as board members about what is the next visibly tangible thing that we see. So kind of piggybacking off of what Joe elevated. So I've heard questions about clear backpacks at school. I've heard questions about safety on the playgrounds. Do we put a wall around a playground? I want to give air to that, because I think those are things that people are thinking about, that they see safety, not the way that maybe we within the system experience it. So I think there's kind of a question there about, some of those things that we know schools are doing, clear backpacks.
I can share with you, my wife went to high school in Milwaukee. They had metal detectors in the school in Milwaukee. She just shared with me yesterday, she did not feel safe even having those metal detectors. Some of it really comes down to the culture of the facility that you're in. And that's, I think, where the energy needs to be placed, is building that culture and building the safety on the inside. And then also, I think you need to differentiate. There's a difference between an internal threat and an external threat. And metal detectors, yeah, you might catch an internal threat. But it's not going to stop an external threat, like I previously mentioned. There's always ways to defeat it.
It's helpful, I think, for us as board leadership too, as we think about resources and next steps and looking ahead of how to continue to be as safe as we possibly can. I really appreciate your insights as professionals, beyond the scope of education, so we can be thoughtful about what that is. And thanks, Joe, for bringing that up earlier as well. Thank you.
So I have another question too, that it's kind of a hard turn, because it's not about school safety in the sense of safety from violence, but it is something that I think about a ton over the last couple of months. And I have a suspicion I'm not the first person to bring up to you guys the threat posed by these electronic bikes or powered scooters. Even just being at a school football game, you see kids riding by on these things going, it sure looks like 30 miles an hour, where kids are walking around. And I'm very worried that there's going to be some incident where someone's going to get hurt. I'm wondering if you could speak to, number one, is that the kind of thing that you can do something about on the school campus? Like, is that something that can be cited if it's observed on school property? And then maybe just generally what maybe is being done to kind of address what at least I've seen as a growing problem.
Well, you're right, it is a growing concern, and for the analogy, it's gone from 0 to 60. As far as the complaints, and there is a real concern about the safety of the students that are on those e-bikes, e-scooters. And so we've been doing research, we're looking at our ordinance, we need to update our ordinances. We're actually coming up with some training material. Brad's already been involved with some of that, so Brad, you want to talk about what we're already working on?
Yeah, so I've been in contact with district office, some of the surrounding districts and stuff. There was already an informational flyer that went out in the first month's superintendent's report, kind of about that. The way things kind of stand right now is a lot of these regulations are purely based on state statute, which is regulation of rules on the road, which is just if you're on a public roadway, stopping for a stop sign, speed, right of way, things like that. In terms of once you get off the roadway, unfortunately, as the chief kind of mentioned, those are things that aren't really regulated right now. And so the city is taking steps to kind of draft those ordinances to address those concerns. But we're in talks with making, an educational video kind of about how to make sure that you're riding safely, obeying the rules of the road, and things like that. And then I'm sure there'll be an update to that video whenever the city updates its ordinances on whatever new route they decide to take. Historically, we've been just taking these city ordinances and applying them onto school property since it's still all public property. And like I said, right now, there's really not much in terms of that for once those e-vehicles are off the roadway.
And it's an issue everywhere.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Everywhere. We're not.
Well, good. I appreciate everything you're doing.
It has been multiple times a week that is a discussion that has come up to me from students, from staff, from parents at a football game. It comes up all the time, and we promise we're hearing it, and it's in the works.
I've heard, probably not exaggerating, 50 different times from parents describing to me near misses where they almost hit a kid. And I'm worried one of these days the near misses is gonna have the near go away.
I mean, Chief, it's come up at the city council level, hasn't it? I mean, you guys received a lot of phone calls at the city.
So we have, yeah. So like I said, 0 to 60, it went from, what's an e-scooter to, we're getting lots of complaints because, I mean, frankly, it's a lot of dangerous behavior. And, I'll kind of bring it back to gun safety, where we're asking the parents to be more involved. We're asking the parents to be proactive. And the same applies to these e-scooters because they probably don't know what their kids are doing, to be honest. That they're going through stop signs or not wearing helmets or, I used to ride a skateboard, I was one of the skater kids. So skateboarding is not a crime, I get that. But I also have read the statistics of the increase in head injuries because of e-scooters. And of course, once again, we're about safety and we want to prevent those head injuries. So we are talking about it. We are going to rewrite our ordinances. We are going to put out training material. And just circling back, I think there needs to be an educational campaign for the parents to talk to their kids about safety on the e-scooters and just following the rules of the road, like Officer Stoll said.
I believe it's also going to be with our community officer tied into our boat bike rodeo starting next spring. When they host the little ones for bike safety and things like that, I believe they're going to have a separate little discussion about e-bikes and e-scooters and e-skateboards as well. We've been discussing that, so.
Well, I appreciate that. I didn't mean to take us on a hard turn. I didn't want to let you get away without asking.
Thank you so much. This openness, this conversation, I look forward to having another one when we decide a time is timely and appropriate for the community, but we all have open doors to be able to answer questions and support. So thank you, all of you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
We are still within the superintendent's report to start our Act 95 revisit. And do you mind if I just offer a frame actually, so we can revisit this? So just for reminders to the community and the board, we've engaged in conversations around Act 95, the Wisconsin Guarantee, last year to create some tie-breaking criteria for our scholars that are going to be graduating and potentially having this admissions possibility into state schools. We talked about this in August and kind of agreed to table and come back to deciding what we may be doing for tie-breaking criteria for this next graduating group. So given that, whatever you're going to present to give us a couple of gentle reminders. But I think for the sake of the conversation, that's really our task at hand. What are we doing in this moment around tie-breaking criteria, regardless of maybe the sentiments we previously shared on our maybe general loathing about the fact that we're in this position, and just kind of keeping that eye forward on maybe aggressively pursuing legislative pressure to remove this, and or philosophical discussions that we see surfacing to kind of keep those as future agenda items, and really focusing on what we're going to do right now, given the fact that we are here and have to be here. So with that, I hope that's all right to set that up for you all.
Thank you so much for that framing. I think we recognize that Act 95 was not a Verona Area School District Board decision, right? But we are committed to being in compliance with that, and we recognize at this point that to be of service to our families and be responsive to our families and our students who are interested in what our approach will be, it's important that we are able to inform them of what our steps will be to move forward. And with that, we also continue to assert that we don't believe Wisconsin Guarantee or Act 95 is the only way for students to gain admittance to our UW system schools. And again, know that for some of our families, this is something that's important to them and of interest, and we want to honor that and be responsive in pursuing that. And so tonight, our goal, as you stated, Jen, is just to remind us of kind of some of the conversations we've had previously. We know there's no perfect system, or we would have already figured that out by now, hopefully, but reminder of some of the implications, and then kind of some options for next steps forward. So the first slide here we have is just a reminder of what the Wisconsin Guarantee, also called Act 95, states. We are legally mandated to comply with this, and it allows guaranteed admission for the top 10% of the graduating class to any UW system school except for UW-Madison, and then the top 5% are also guaranteed access to UW-Madison. Is based solely on GPA that is calculated after 6 semesters, so at the end of the junior year. The current waiver, so last year, based on the tie-breaking criteria that the board voted on, we applied for a waiver with DPI, and these were the 3 tie-breaking criteria. Again, in some years we've needed tie-breaking criteria, other times we have not. They would go in this order: the total number of credits earned at VHS, total number of advanced placement credits earned at VHS, and then finally the highest composite ACT score. And again, this tie-breaking criteria would only be used for students who had met the 4.0 GPA requirement.
And push us beyond the 10% or 5%. So that's, if we have more than 10% of a graduating class with 4.0s, this has to then be applied, because the state is saying you can only send us 10% of your names.
Correct. Yes. So some implications of our current practice. So as a reminder, by the time we voted on this tie-breaking criteria last year, students had already selected their courses for the year. So we recognize that there's potentially some staffing and course implications here that we don't yet know, or we haven't played out through the whole cycle. Mr. Cox tonight will speak to what some potential implications might be. What we do know is that we did go through this process. We applied this tie-breaking criteria last year, and in looking at the students who we applied the tie-breaking criteria with, we learned a few things. There were a few implications. One was that the total number of credits, which we have as our first tie-breaking criteria, some students had more access to earn more credits than others as a result of participating in youth apprenticeships, partner programs, summer school, etc. So some of those programs require applications and aren't necessarily available to all students. So that was a quick recognition as we looked at that list. Based on access to certain programming, some students had an immediate advantage over others. We also recognize that with AP credits, that some departments offer more AP credits than others, right? There's one AP class in the music department, there's numerous in the social studies department. So depending on student interest, students may have access to more AP coursework than others. We also know that some students, based on the coursework they take in middle school, may actually be able to access AP courses earlier in their high school career, which then could also give them a different advantage or priority within the tie-breaking criteria as we set. So recognizing that when we set this criteria last year, it was important to us that the board had shared the importance of total number of credits and AP credits. As we've seen that play out, and what does that actually mean for students, we wanted to bring those lessons back to the board, whether those were intended or unintended. This is kind of how we've seen this actually play out in practice. And as I mentioned, we made these decisions last year after students had selected their courses, but our courses and student course selection for OE11 drives how we staff the building and how Mr. Cox works with his team to actually make the overarching schedule and determine how many sections run, how many classes move forward based on the student numbers. And so I want Mr. Cox tonight to speak to some of the potential staffing implications of the current tie-breaking criteria, just for us to consider as we go into this discussion today.
Yeah, and some of the staffing implications that we run into when you're building a large schedule, you run into a few pinch points that are somewhat unavoidable. In many cases, you'll run into classes that may only have 10 students requesting to take that course. And in the case of like an AP class, I'll use music, for example. We only have one AP music offering. And AP music theory this past year had 10 students requested. So if we're following our guidelines to a T, it didn't hit 15 and therefore it should not run. So we've automatically pulled that opportunity away, and the only opportunity away should we not offer it. And so in working with our music department, they chose to have higher numbers in other spaces, but we have a band class of 70 students. And so if we don't staff that with multiple teachers, the one-to-one feedback as we're trying to coach those students, it just isn't there. And so that pushes us into a space where we're having to create overloads and stress Mr. Weezy's budget, asking for more overloads in order to cover those spaces. And again, I think the beauty and the curse of our beautiful space is that we have so many offerings. We have so many ways in which students can engage that we sometimes have to prioritize where can we maximize our staffing to meet the most needs possible. Some of the other things that tend to pop up in this situation focus around students creating 4-year plans with very specific coursework that they want to take across those 4 years. And if we were to not offer a specific course that's in a direct line of coursework, or they weren't able to get into it because there were only 30 seats in that particular class and we had 35 that chose it, then we get into a space of really disrupting that student's long-term trajectory and plans. And so those are a few of the staffing implications, but I also want to touch on another one that is near and dear to my heart, and that's the climate and culture of a building, the space that you live and work in. When it comes to this space, we have a beautiful climate and culture with amazing staff. And when you get into a situation where you then start elevating one staff member and what they teach over another, we run into a space where you now by proxy are elevating that one staff member over someone else based off what their certifications are and their ability to teach. And so I always keep that in the back of my mind, that just as our students need to be seen, valued, and loved, so do our staff. And so those are the big key pieces that we just bring to our conversation.
Yeah, please.
Kind of on the subject, off the subject, prepare to thrive in a global diversity. The letters, the words up there, brilliant. I love that. We should do something with the stained glass on the bridges up there as well. Just thought I'd throw that out there.
Yes, ultimately, that's what it's about.
I love that up there. I think as soon as you come in as a scholar, you see that. It does something for you, it has to.
And so then kind of the last reminder, so these were the implications, what we saw kind of and how the data played out this year for students, some possibilities that we're foreseeing may have implications for staff if we continue with these criteria. Then the last reminder here was just, we already do have an admin role, 434P, that is the academic excellence scholarship that we've been giving out for years. That also goes by GPA and requires tie-breaking criteria. Those tie-breaking criteria are different currently than the tie-breaking criteria for Act 95, and we've gotten some feedback that that is perhaps confusing for families about why we use one in one place and one in another, and that is simply their first tie-breaking criteria for the academic excellence scholarship is the highest composite ACT. Then the tiebreaker number 2 is a total number of high school credits earned after 7 semesters. We need to do 6 for Act 95, and then the final tiebreaker is a chance drawing. So just further context for some and precedent of what already exists within our system for these sort of tiebreakers. So with that, possible next steps, we certainly could vote to continue with the criteria that's already in our current waiver that's been adopted by DPI. The board could vote to amend the criteria or the order of the criteria, any of the above, and we could apply for a new waiver or not voting, which Nate has informed me would then default to what our current waiver is. So those are kind of the steps forward, just to understand the timeline. Brian is currently fielding new course request options from teachers. Right now, those decisions will be made in November. We look to have the course guide to families in December, and then they will begin thinking through what does this mean for my student with course selection actually happening in January. And so wanting to make sure that we can inform families of what to expect and how we will proceed with our compliance to academic practice. So from there, we'll open it up to any questions or any discussion. Those are really the reminders we wanted to bring back to the table.
I have a question. This may just be for Nate. Are we allowed, so when we're talking about aligning with the scholarship criteria, are we allowed to do just like names out of a hat as one of our criteria? I thought it had to be only academic criteria.
It should be academic criteria is what DPI has been telling us. Whenever we try to bring up something that's been not directly linked to like an academic number, they said, oh, it's not likely to be approved.
So we can't settle it with a 40-yard dash.
We could submit the DPI too, they said. I don't recommend it.
I have a quick question. I'm looking at the scholarship. It's ACT or SAT. Is that, how do you make a comparison?
There definitely isn't a direct one-to-one relation between the two. And I think being in the Midwest, we have some students who kind of set their trajectory to navigate to the East Coast, which is primarily more SAT. And coming from the West most of my life, SAT was never administered. I mean, it was all ACT in that range. So I think where you see more of the articulation between the two different assessments actually happens within ACT versus SAT. They do have a pre-SAT, but it's not as built out and robust and geared to where you can make implications or educated guesses to where when you're looking at a freshman with this score, here's where they should land, given the next 2 years of more general instruction.
Maybe I'm confusing the terms, but I'm looking at the tie-breaking procedure for the scholarship. And it looks like it could be ACT or SAT. Is that?
That's how the admin rule reads. I don't know if in the past year we've had very many students who submitted an SAT score.
Correct, yeah, and usually where we only see students that are taking those SAT scores are the ones that already have in their mind they're going to the East Coast. And so for the ACT, because it's part of our accountability suite, every student has the opportunity to take that for free. And so that's really where that's kind of been our hallmark.
Okay, so if we were looking to streamline or, to consolidate, we would eliminate SAT as altogether from the Wisconsin guarantee criteria, would that be?
Which I don't think did we have?
So I think it's not currently listed. We only have, in our current waiver, we have highest composite ECT score. And I think, Meredith, the other difference between what we currently have in the waiver and what's in the academic excellence scholarship is we say it's from the state mandated test that we administer, the one test that we administer in the spring.
Yeah.
Whereas in the academic excellence, we say the highest score reported. We recognize students might be taking the test multiple times. We initially in our waiver had said it was the one that we mandated because that one's free and accessible to all students. So I think what you're naming is that there is, even if we shifted and the board decided the tie-breaking criteria, we're going to mirror the academic excellence scholarship, there would be an opportunity for us there to align what we mean by which administration of the ACT and whether or not we would continue to include the SAT as an option.
And I would say with this specific piece around the academic excellence scholarship, that SAT piece is there because that's how your national merit scholars are found.
That's, yeah.
And so that piece probably needs to sit there in the sense that you'd hate to have a national merit winner and then not have them in that academic excellence situation because they are few and far between.
This is such an interesting meeting because these are the two topics that I get questioned about the most: school safety and the Wisconsin guarantee. Very diverse in critical nature, but nonetheless, to the parents and the students that are impacted, this is, very important. So I I'm still struggling with just going with ACT. But I think I'm also concerned about changing criteria. And I think continuity has some value too. And I feel like there's downsides to any tie-breaking criteria. And I'm trying to weigh where there is more detrimental impact. And consistency, I think, has some merit too. But I'm not going to reiterate what I would say, thanks to Jen for our discussion.
Yeah, I don't wanna, it feels like we just had this conversation.
Yeah.
And I don't wanna get on my soapbox like I did last time, except to say that we don't want, to me, they're all bad options. The least bad option is the one that influences behavior less. Because I don't like the idea of student behavior being influenced by us having our hands tied and forced to do something. And to me, the criteria that influences behavior the least, albeit imperfect, is the ACT score, because everybody takes it.
Well, not everybody though. That's where I wondered if the SAT would also be able to be calculated in. Because
Yeah, that's a good point. And I guess I don't have strong opinions about that. I wouldn't be upset if we did it just like how it's written in the administrative rule. I guess just the idea of the standardized test, as imperfect and oftentimes inequitable as standardized testing is, and not a good metric. To me, it's the only metric we're talking about that doesn't influence student course selection, doesn't lead to staff hierarchy like Mr. Cox is talking about. And that's why, to me, it's the preferred option of all bad options.
With the SAT, we don't control the testing
We don't
environment.
give the SAT. The ACT is state mandated, so every student, every junior does take the ACT, and it's paid for, and it's administered here at school, so that is accessible. We don't administer, the SAT is not a state mandated test, so not everybody would necessarily have access to it. They could pay to take it at a different time, but it's not part of the state assessment.
So can I reflect that back there, then every junior will have an ACT score?
Unless their family opted out of the assessment for some reason.
Okay, so that's, I think, the piece, right, is like, is there a gap if we don't somehow introduce the SAT? Do we have every student that will have an ACT score?
I would have to look at the numbers, how many opted
Yeah,
out.
or if, what happens in that instance where we have someone in the tie break that wouldn't have an ACT score?
I can tell you that, for example, we gave the pre-ACT to our freshmen here, just ending last week. And we had 2 students out of the entire freshman class that were not captured and that chose not to take that. And so, again, I think when given the choice and the opportunity to take it, knowing these implications are there, I think that those may be students who have different pathways already set, that ACT doesn't mean as much to them.
And that may go to your point, Joe, of like the least detrimental behavior shift. If a behavior shift is, well, then I'll take the darn ACT when it's offered. Is that, the least restrictive in terms of greater impacts like the other pieces?
I'd be concerned if we added an additional assessment. You actually could increase the likelihood of an ACT opt-out, which we don't want to have.
Right.
I think it's just if we're talking about trying to find consistency, then the rule's written one way, then I think you would still be inviting questions of why is this for the rule, and then why is this for the scholarship versus the guarantee, so.
That you kind of addressed there, Mr. Cox.
Yeah.
So that was
And
helpful.
it's also true that Wisconsin Guarantee is all about admission to Wisconsin state schools, which accept the ACTs. So like that's an easy difference to explain in my opinion. And the test is, even if it's not administered to everyone, it is offered to everyone.
So one thing I did draft up kind of a proposal for centering our equity framework, not necessarily for this round because we're so close. And I know students and families have been planning for quite a while where we are, but as we center that, and not to bring down our expectations of excellence, but rather to broaden opportunity through that and identify barriers where they may exist. So I think, income has a lot to do in student success as we look at these tracks and how do we lessen that reality for some families to barriers for access to transportation, preparatory classes and courses, planning in middle school all the way up through the coursework. So I'm happy to share that with, I don't want to go through each bullet point, but rather I've got a proposal that I've written, and maybe we can spend some time as a board to look at that as you think further down the line in the future on addressing that.
Yeah, thanks for that. And I do think there's future conversations, depending on the reality of this continuing and living with us and mirroring this to philosophical discussions we've had about what we think we want to do within our district, regardless and or maybe in parallel too. So I appreciate all of that kind of future thought to dig into some of that and, you know, how we remedy this.
Mr. Cox and the high school team have already taken some steps to try to make the ACT more accessible. Any student can take an ACT prep course, get the big test practice book, and they've done some work with that. We also did just begin the fall administration of the pre-ACT. So now our 9th grade students will have score reports that will project what their ACT score will be and then have more practice with an assessment of that nature. So just a few steps that the team has already taken, trying to make that feel less high stakes in nature.
Just to clarify, you said that we're offering some prep.
Correct, yeah.
Work for
And
students.
I'll just ground this I'm a first generation college student in my family, and I come from a very poor background, and so that's always been kind of my anchor point in this, is that with a single mom who, quite frankly, we learned about missing deadlines after they had already passed. So we navigated all of those pieces, and so that's always very near and dear to my heart. In terms of the ACT, we purchase a ACT prep book for our students that would normally cost them $40 to get, with multiple tests, online resources as well. We purchase that for all of our junior students. We then offer specific after-school prep sessions for 2 weeks throughout the school year. And we try to tailor those sessions specifically to the students who are coming to us. And so our families will be getting a survey very soon to start signing up for wanting to be a part of those preparatory classes. That is all free. Again, you'd have to pay anywhere from $100 to $200 in the community space to be able to access those. When I originally came here, my very first year, I walked by on a Saturday and saw just both doors of our LGI open, and I was like, what do we got going on a Saturday? It was a prep class that folks were, paying money to be able to access that wasn't driven by our school. And I was kind of drawn to the idea that if we have this space already, we were able to work with the textbook publishing company and get those books at half price for students, and quite frankly, just obliterate any barrier that a family would have. Now it just becomes the time piece and getting them in for that 4-day training after school for an hour a day. We've got the buses already locked in for it, snacks for the kids, the whole 9 yards. So we try to take care of everything we can. We are working and expanding into our 8+ time as well for some of those families that have work obligations and may have practices and so forth. And we're also working with Mr. Steiner and our coaching staff to free up a little grace during those periods where we are having those preparatory classes to maybe shift to a late practice in the winter, if at all possible, so those students can access the trainings.
I really
That's
appreciate
great.
you put thought into all of those different contingencies, because those are, access for some is always just inevitably going to impact, then there's not a universal, I still struggle with the one test. But I really just appreciate all of the thoughtful work that has gone into, making this playing field as even as possible with access, just thought so carefully, that I just think is really, that's a value to all of our students, regardless of this Wisconsin guarantee. This is just a service, and that the focus on eliminating barriers is just, is just represented here, which I know is happening in so many areas. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
When is the ACT administered?
March. Pull up the date if you give me a second.
That's all right, that's close enough. I should know, I have it here.
So as we mull over any further questions and we shift eventually to what our potential voter action may be. There is intentionality here on the agenda that the space for public comment was left in between. So I do want to make sure, I'm not aware of any public comment, but I wanted to be sure there was space for that if it specifically related to this topic. Lori, am I aware? Okay. So just to kind of clear that through the agenda path, so then if we start to shift to a place that we've taken care of that potential space. So you see on slide 35 that our options are to take an official vote, to keep our current criteria, which as Nate has shared, can be carried through for 3 iterations. So even if we decide not to do anything, that would be the default. We would remain with the criteria that we voted on last time. Or someone can propose a motion to amend. I know this group and the intention behind this board in shared discussion and attempt to have kind of a collective vision, but know that this doesn't have to be a 7-0 vote, right? We can carry our philosophical pieces with this. The vote can truly reflect your perspective. Just knowing that this is something we're tasked to do.
Can we just clarify one more time? This would impact our juniors this year, or would it impact juniors next year? There's so many different moving pieces on timelines. When the ACT, tell me.
Great question.
It would begin with implementation this year, so this year's junior class, which will be the graduating class of 2027.
So current juniors would follow this criteria and would be identified at the end of this school year per this criteria. Right, okay.
If the waiver was, right, the waiver, DPI would have to accept our waiver.
Mhm.
Move forward with that criteria at the end of this school year.
I just want to put it on record that I will be supporting if we remain true to what we've already established, with the caveat that if we look earlier in the year for next iterations and really focusing on identifying existing barriers that beyond what we've already identified to center our equity framework. I'd like to do that work as a board or even a subgroup of the board.
Can I build up that? I'm struggling with this, and maybe more so than I need to be, but I also have the consistency concern. Is this something,
Like we reorder it now from last year.
is it, again, like I said, I'm struggling with this more so than I should be, but I still am. And nonetheless, if we have this, in place at the start of the year for this year, what we've already kind of discussed in the past, is there a way to then foreshadow that? I don't know. I'm really having a hard time with this. And it feels like it's a lot to put on one day. And yet I also very much hear it's a lot to put on 3 years leading into it, with a 4th year as a result. So
But we can change it at any time. It's good
There's
for
no
3 years,
though.
but we can.
Right, is that changing also creating stress?
3 years of stress for students who are putting in, trying to build up AP classes, things like that. I mean,
So, go ahead, John.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna make a motion to move us forward, but if John's got some comments, I'll let it.
So I will say, Joe, that the thing you started with about the decision that alters people's behavior the least is probably a good criteria. Not usually am I compelled to rethink my positions.
The way you said that was really
As many of you
impactful.
might know.
Yeah.
But that was a good one.
Yeah.
I made my opinion perfectly well known last time about how disdainful I feel towards the ACT score. That being said, I think we can all recognize that there are some problems associated with the numbers of credits earned that we maybe didn't see coming. I also am very sympathetic to I don't want to change this over and over and over again. So I do think that if we are going to vote for a change, that it's going to be that way for a number of years to where we can maybe do some of the deeper, more philosophical work that we need to do to revisit this like in 3 years or something.
Mhm.
So that's really all I had to say. So Joey, here we go.
Yeah, I was gonna agree with Meredith's comment, which is that I'm very torn on this and I don't like this. At the same time, I don't think more discussion is gonna make me feel any better about
Right.
any position.
Yeah.
So just kind of for the sake of moving it forward, I'll make a motion that we change the order of our criteria to have composite ACT score first, and then total credits earned second. And because we can't, it doesn't sound like we can do the name out of a hat, we'll keep the AP credits as the third. That's my motion. We can.
So if we're looking at slide 32, your motion, Joe, would make that list say 3, 1, 2.
Yes,
Am I reflecting that back accurately? Does
yes.
that make sense to the rest of the board members, the motion?
Slide 32.
Slide
Okay, yes.
32, it would, as the numbers are there, it would go 3, 1, 2 is the motion Joe is making.
Right.
Is there a second? I'm gonna second it, actually.
You seconded it.
I'm gonna second it.
I'll third.
Any, and it sounds like my ready for vote. Any further discussion?
Our thoughts are that we'll keep this in place for 3 years.
Well, that was gonna be a question to Nate. So if we vote on it today, do we then restart the clock that this can stay for 3 years? This year, next year, and the year after?
Yes, that's to approve it. Yeah.
Right, but if that, yeah.
So it really depends on what DPI says. So
Okay.
the initial waiver that we submitted was actually a waiver application for 1 year, and they approved it for 4 unexpectedly.
Oh,
No.
I see. So it's at the whim of DPI, how many years we would get out of this?
I think it's because if we were to resubmit the same criteria, they would just approve it again this year.
Okay.
It's not exactly a large section of DPI that's dealing with this, so they're probably thinking, let me just approve this and not have to review every single school district submitting an application
Every year, okay,
all this amount of time.
okay,
You, as a board, you can return and decide that we need to submit another waiver at any point in time.
okay. All right, so
Just a question.
there's a motion by Joe, a second by me for 3, 1, 2. Any further discussion or questions at this point before we vote?
You can do a voice vote.
I think I am gonna do a voice vote just to make sure, again, that we all can vote how we want to vote and that we have an accurate.
We provided dissertation.
Right, and justification and summary. Okay. All right, so we'll take a voice vote to be in favor of 3, 1, 2 would be a yay or a nay. Joe?
Yay.
Corby?
Yeah.
I am a yay. John?
Nay.
Meredith?
No, I'm gonna say, yay, because I just have a lot of confidence in the work that's done, and it's still the criteria, just different order. Sorry, a little dissertation, but
So you are a yay for this
Yeah.
motion. Okay, Christopher?
Yay with caveat.
Juan Carlos?
Yay with the fact that we'll look at this and we'll really think deeply of what's a better way forward. I don't know if you can add on that.
Well, with that, the motion is approved. Lori, are you good on notes? I have some as well. Okay. Okay, so we have the rearrangement 3, 1, 2 of our previous criteria.
We'll move forward with submitting the waiver.
thank you for
Thank you.
entertaining all of
Yeah.
our, angst-driven discussion over 3 criteria.
Right, but for the
You know,
deep dive too, as Meredith said, I mean, just that your team has been giving us all, right, the things that we're contemplating, you've been able to give us some data to chew on about those things.
I wanted to thank you specifically for that, for coming back with it. We had benchmarks. That was, I think, really important for me to see that the criteria, like the benchmarks didn't meaningfully change anything. And so thank you for at least exploring that. Put my mind at ease. I can be
I want to
done.
add another thank you just for offering all the extra help for the prep work. That's amazing. Something I wish I had access to when I was in high school. So that really shows you care. Obviously you do, but be doing all of that for our students and giving them that opportunity to do as best as they can is really awesome. Thank you. I appreciate it.
I will add, you guys did a great job. I'm pretty sure if we just came in and voted without your presentation, I could have convinced enough people to vote that down.
Well, thank you team, thanks board leadership.
Thank you.
So moving on through our agenda, board updates, anything specific to communication or general updates. I will start with the reminder that we have our Greater Dane County Consortium gathering on Thursday, starting at 5:30 for networking and food, presentation at 6 at the Holzman Learning Center in Madison. I think you have a calendar invite, hopefully that has all that information. Let me know if you have questions. And I'll just also elevate, since it was a bit of a topic tonight, that Friday is World Mental Health Day. So elevating that in a way that maybe works in your world.
Can I put a motion out there, please?
Yes, please, yeah.
I just want to remind our community and our board, the presentation of the Play Hades Talented Teen Edition opens up Friday, and then also a matinee on Saturday. So
I think it starts Thursday.
Thursday, sorry,
Great.
you're right. It's right there in front of
I'm
me.
kidding.
It says.
I see your-
I apologize. And they were just on
It's not
the,
Thursday, I'm gonna be doing something.
they were just on the podcast. I should have said Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Thank you for correcting me.
Wonderful.
Jen, did you already explain why we're doing 5:30 on the 3rd and 17th?
We're getting there, which I can do that now, so we're getting to future
Okay, I
dates.
was
So
curious, yeah.
yes, so if you look at future dates, right now written in pencil, but everything is updated electronically. And all the round and round we've gone with having board workshops. I'm kind of making the somewhat executive decision to hope that Monday, starting 30 minutes earlier, will just work for us. Rather than trying to find another weeknight or heaven forbid a Saturday to just be able to do some ongoing work for ourselves. So November 3rd, we'll start at 5:30 with immediate board meeting to follow. I'd like to try to keep the workshop to an hour, but if we finish early, we'll just shift straight into our regular board meeting. The topic on November 3rd will be supported by Shayna, and it will be navigating expulsion hearings. It's something that we've talked about at length and wanting to just have some time to really navigate philosophically and logistically with the support of our legal counsel. And then November 17th, also 5:30 to 6:30-ish with Shayna to talk about some of the legal 101s of board work, focusing a bit on contract and like the one-year extension piece, because that will be really timely and relevant, but then dabbling into other pieces. I've spoken with Shayna about trying to do an annual legal 101 after every election cycle, so like May-ish.
Killing it, Jen.
Well, I feel a little kind of like we're doing this, so that is the 5:30 PM start for the 2 November meetings. So please let me know if you have any questions or thoughts about the topics.
Like, whoa, that's.
Right, right, and we'll, reasonable for the sake of team and audience that would like to be a part of our regular meeting, but I just think that's kind of the least restrictive way to try to share space with each other so we can continue to develop and grow as a board on things that we've repeatedly shared our areas for that.
And the workshop would be a public meeting.
Yep, it's open. Yep, exactly. Yeah, so we'll just plan to be in the same space. I know sometimes we've workshopped elsewhere, but because we'll feed straight into our board meeting, we'll be here. We might take, just a quick recess as we transition, but that is what we'll try for the 2 November meetings.
Big show.
Yeah, thanks. So we'll just kind of keep you posted, or any questions can be sent my way. So with that, if there's nothing else for any other general board updates, we'll shift to superintendent consent agenda. Please making sure again that you've looked over that consent agenda. Are there any questions? Okay, hearing none, the superintendent's consent agenda is approved as presented. And then board consent agenda, just drawing your attention that this then is our first consent agenda that has monitoring notes. Thank you so much, Juan Carlos, for being our first note taker. So we'll continue that process as we do monitoring. Are there any questions on the board consent agenda? Okay, hearing none, board's consent agenda is also approved. So we've just kind of talked about future dates. So those will be updated times of 5:30 starts on the 3rd and 17th. And with that, I would then accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Meredith. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Juan Carlos. All in favor of adjourning tonight's meeting, signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. Thanks, everyone. Go Brewers.
Thank you.
Yeah, good job getting this